Welcome to another Rhythm Section Future-Proof Masterclass. If you're not already familiar, Rhythm Section is the South London-based label, promoter, radio show, many things. And Future-Proof is our program that aims to demystify the music industry and also diversify electronic music. And I'm excited to say that we're here in Leeds today at Hope House. Huge thanks to Map Charity and Cosmic Slot for hosting us. You can see the beautiful sound system behind us. I'm Emily, sometimes known as EJ, and Echo Juliet. I'm a DJ and a producer, and I'm part of the team running Future Proof alongside Amelia and Bradley and the rest of the Rhythm Section team. And I'm very excited today to be joined by two people. It's unusual for us to have two people on the metaphorical sofa for this one. The brilliant Adam Pitts.
Hello.
Producer, DJ, co-founder of On Rotation label, also founder of a new label, which we'll talk about shortly. And of course, Bradley Zero, founder of Rhythm Section International DJ, radio host, many other things.
And Leeds boy.
And Leeds native, most importantly, yes.
I'm adopted Leeds boy.
Yeah. Bradley's actually wearing a Leeds football shirt underneath his shirt. Yeah.
I went to the game too.
We're going to be talking about community today. That's kind of the vibe. I feel like that word gets thrown around quite a lot, so it might be good to just start by working out what we mean by that. I mean, in a very literal way, to me, I guess community means people with a shared interest. But I'm interested to know what that word means to both of you. Maybe do you want to kick off, Adam?
I think what strikes me is like a feeling of belonging.
Nice.
Like you know that you're with your people, and there's not that much more around that for me. That's kind of what community is for me.
It's nice, it's a feeling.
Yeah,
Love that.
Yeah, definitely what Adam said. But for me, I guess community can exist on a number of different levels. Like you could be a really regular poster on a forum, you know, or you could have a lot of friends on MySpace or my MSN Messenger or Instagram or whatever it was.
We're in the 2000s now.
Yeah, we taking it back.
Yeah.
But for me, when I really felt what community meant, it was a lot more of a localized thing, and that was personally when I moved to Southeast London, Peckham in particular, and found not just people who were interested in the same things as me, but they lived on the same street as me, and we drank in the same place and danced in the same clubs. And that, for me, is when, I don't know, it all sort of clicked. So very, very localized. But then I guess what I've been doing over the last 15 or so years is sort of expanding that to different places and somehow navigating different communities around the world and bringing it back to where I call home.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think there's something in there about music and electronic music in general being a very face-to-face, in-person thing, and that you can build communities online, which I think we'll come on to in a bit, but that it quite often does come back to face-to-face, like meeting people, building relationships that way sometimes. I don't know. I'm not saying there's a good or bad necessarily in either of those.
100%. Real people, real life, real spaces, places like this. I think that fosters a sense of community for sure.
Yeah, nice.
But it's also nice to be able to access it when you don't live in, you know, a place that has a active community of creative people, which is where I guess the internet comes in. But I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, it actually kind of leads into the thing I was going to ask you about next, which is about, like, you know, you've both lived in Leeds, you both now live in London, and about the differences in the scenes in both of those places. Interested to know what you love about each, because they both bring very different things, I guess.
Yeah, I guess my experience of Leeds was, you know, it's smaller, it's more condensed, it's easier to get from place to place without having to travel for long periods of time. And it just makes it more of an inviting environment to go to things and meet new people. And I think part of that when I was at university here was actually like the house party scene, and especially in the music sense, like that was the beginning of the community and like a lot of people I was meeting at house parties with similar interests. That was like a driving force into the next stage of like going to clubs and stuff.
Yeah, so very linked to your student experience.
Yeah, yeah. And it felt like a completely different world. But I'm sure there's a similar thing in London. I just didn't have that experience there because I grew up as an adult in Leeds.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I was going to say we basically exchanged places.
Yeah,
Adam
literally.
grew up in Southeast London and moved to Leeds when he was 18, and I grew up in Leeds and moved to London when I was 18.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't, I grew up in here, well, around West Yorkshire. But, when you're in school and you're sort of getting interested in those things at an early age, you don't have a community built around your like niche interest. It's just your friends from school, which is a community within itself. But for me, moving to London was sort of leaving that part of my life behind and diving into this sort of like hot pot of creativity and meeting people and spending all my time with people who were artists, musicians, painters, in bands, graphic designers, you name it. So, yeah, I'm sure we had a similar sort of...
I had exactly the same experience the other way around, actually, what you just said.
So university is a big thing, I think is what we're hearing.
Yeah, and I think it is quite hard to move a bit later in life without that structure in place. Yeah. It's like if I move to Leeds now, let's say I wanted to move back home. My dad's there, by the way, so maybe stay at his place for a bit. But other than a few of the sort of people that I already know doing cool things in the city, I wouldn't be really plugged into like a big network of young people like doing stuff every night, going to house parties, just causing mischief. I think as you get a bit older, and I don't want to be all, I don't want to be negative about it, but it's harder to find and build and maintain a community because no one wants to go out.
100%.
Everyone's having kids, early nights, got to be at work in the morning. When I was at university, when I first moved to London, we were out every single night. And that's where you really build that community of people just, I guess, without too many responsibilities. Yeah.
I mean, I think making friends as an adult is an art in itself, isn't it? Like making new friends. Like if you move to a new place and you don't know anyone, it is a big thing. But I guess that's also where music can help.
For sure.
It's a shared interest thing, isn't it? I'm interested to know, maybe from you, Adam, what impact do you think it has trying to build a career in electronic music being outside of the capital city? Because obviously you kind of built what you have mostly from Leeds. You only moved to London last year. So yeah, how did you find that? Do you think it did have any impact not being in London at first?
I think there was less pressure for sure, and I definitely wasn't thinking about it in that way. And having the community behind me and that experience made it kind of like, it was effortless. I was just doing what I love doing, and everyone gets lucky in these situations, and I definitely had lots of luck. And but the foundations were there to then move forward without the kind of stress of it all.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, and what do you think the pressure is that exists in London? Is it financial pressure?
Competition, especially now with social media. It's everyone's comparing each other, and it's kind of natural to do that. But I think it was less of a thing when I was having my experience here. And I don't know if it translates the same from a smaller city to a bigger city, but I definitely think that the main difference is the ease of not having that pressure.
That's really interesting. I mean, I live in Birmingham, I don't live in London, and the thing that I'm very aware of is the financial side, actually, that if I lived in London, I'd need to be earning X amount more as a self-employed person, which means less time for making music. So that's it's interesting to hear that you're perceiving that differently?
Now that you say that, that was a big thing for me. So I finished university, and I was obsessed with producing. I wasn't so much into DJing yet, but I found that I didn't have to work ridiculous hours to be able to give myself the time to then pursue what I really liked doing. And yeah, so I think COVID happened actually at the right time for me. That just gave me even more time.
Yeah.
But living in Leeds is a lot easier to not have money here and still be able to, buy food and pay rent and stuff.
And I guess also a big plus. I hesitate to say a big plus about COVID. What I'm about to say is, I guess, a big positive for people who are not in those major capital cities is that everything did move online in that time. So suddenly the playing field was leveled a bit geographically as well.
Absolutely. And I would say that I found multiple other music communities within that time as well, like really important, pivotal communities for me, for my taste, and for also like friends around the world that I'm still friends with now.
Amazing. And how did you find them?
And what were they?
One of the main ones was I think it's still going, but I don't really go on Facebook anymore. Rapture Network. It's kind of like a psychedelic music forum, and people from all over the world. I don't know if it was big, but people would just share music that they loved on there, and from there, you added each other and you were talking to each other, send each other records. That was definitely the main one for me, and I'm friends with a lot of the people that I met on there still.
I never heard of that.
No, me neither.
That's the thing, though. There's so many that are probably still going that were started around that time that I wouldn't know, and there's so many little ones that are international. It's a beautiful thing.
Amazing. Do you have any tips for anyone who's trying to kind of build a career in electronic music who's not living in London? Anything you would suggest?
I guess as I said earlier, like my experience to me seems quite lucky. Like the circumstances and the foundations were there for me to be able to kind of fall into the situation. So actually, it's quite hard to answer this in this day and age when actually I'm in a bit of a music transition, and I'm also I feel like I'm slowly finding a new community internationally, and I don't know if it's because I'm older or because I'm not in the same situation as I was before, but it's not as easy. I'm not rolling down the hill.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Is that even a saying?
I don't know.
No, it is.
I don't know if you want to be rolling down a hill.
No.
Maybe it's the opposite of it being an uphill battle. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds too harsh.
Maybe it's sliding down the hill on like something.
We're
Smooth.
tobogganing.
Yeah, tobogganing. Thank you through the hills of Switzerland.
Yeah, we mentioned that you moved to London relatively recently. What has helped you feel connected to a community in London? How have you sort of tried to get involved and immersed in that?
I think part of the community that I built up over the years, a lot of the community is in London. I would say that a new part of it that has come to my life is some friends have opened up a sauna / ambient space in Peckham, and that is actually a really special place, and a lot of the music community go there to just like relax, and a lot of them DJ there playing ambient music, and it's just a really nice, it feels very community based, and I feel like that's really adding to what I have already. But I would say that it is very different, and I'm still getting used to it as I live in Tottenham, or out near Tottenham. It's not very well connected. It takes quite a long time to get anywhere. There's not a lot happening there. So it's definitely a transition that I'm getting used to.
It's also quite a grown-up pastime, isn't it? Compared to, you said like the Leeds house party scene and the Peckham sauna scene.
Yeah.
Wellness exchanged for hedonism.
I do. I am getting to that age now.
Aren't we
Believe it
all?
or not.
But I think the way that you interface and interact with communities, that with your own community, does change, I guess, as you get older. Which I don't know where I'm going with that point, but just an interesting one.
No, absolutely. I feel, and earlier you mentioned like making friends older is actually very different, and actually I think it's way more challenging, and you're more aware of everything, and that kind of seeps into finding your community as well. It takes a lot of bravery to kind of like put yourself out there in a way, which is because we're all connected emotionally to our musical selves. So then when we're finding our musical community, it feels very personal. And I think, yeah, as adults, we're just a bit more sensitive. I am anyway.
I think that's a really nice way of putting it. And I think it probably articulates why so many people find the idea of networking in music so terrifying.
Yeah.
People find it quite like a threatening concept and really stressful. And I think you've probably just articulated why that is the case for a lot of people. Because this is the thing, isn't it? That we're talking about community, but it is also networking. If you're an artist, like your community is also your business partners, clients, etc. It's quite a grey area.
Yeah. Networking's a bad word, isn't it?
It is. We go back to talking about community.
It always made me shiver.
Let's go back to talking about making friends. That's a bit nicer. I mean, that's essentially all networking is, right?
We can talk about networking, it's fine.
But I think if you approach it like I'm going out to network, there's something very sort of shallow about that, you know? But I think we're all involved in this thing that we're really passionate and have a lot of love for. And one of the really nice things I love about this industry is the people that you meet along the way, like in search of a good time, you know? And yeah, I've never been someone who actively considered a network, but it of course grows over time. And one thing I sort of learned when I've been to these events like ADE and South by Southwest, which are essentially like huge networking events, what's actually nice when you sort of take away all the sort of pageantry behind it, you are just kind of going to a party and getting to chat with people that you inevitably email all day. And then it just makes the doing business so much easier. And to be able to sort of break down those formalities and those boundaries and put faces to names, it's just a really fun thing. So I'm an anti-networking networker.
Smart.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and it comes back to that thing about in-person connections and building relationships and people wanting to work with people they've met, I guess. Like,
And it just been way more fun to do so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like you could exist in a bubble as an agent or an artist just making music online and putting it out into the world without really having to come across anyone face to face. But that wouldn't be very fun.
No, it doesn't feel very human.
Yeah. So more reasons to come together are better.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, I was going to ask you to talk a little bit about starting Rhythm Section. You know, in Peckham, you were saying earlier about that being the moment where you felt like you were surrounded by a community, a localized one as well. How did you start to build that community?
It's kind of like how Adam said, it's sort of just, it's happening around you, you know, and I didn't really realize until it's happened, and then you sort of look back. But the first party I did, at the time I was working in a bar in Peckham called Bar Story, and that I just built my community around that. So all my friends were there, all local, you know, musicians, band members, all this kind of creative people I mentioned before. That was like the spot in Peckham. But there was just something missing in my mind, which was just a regular, solid dance party that happened like every 2 weeks. There was some cool things going on, but it was like once in a blue moon there'd be a warehouse rave or a squat party, or you know. But there was nothing regular and dependable. So my idea was just to put that on, but it was more like providing a service. You know, we were like building this little, I guess, community of people, and that was the thing that was missing. So it was like, it just took off from the beginning because it was that was the missing piece of the puzzle at that point. And I never really felt like a promoter.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I never felt that I had to, like advertise it. It was such a tight-knit circle of people back then that it just kind of, the momentum of those people at that point in time just sort of did the work. And a lot of it does come down to like luck, being at the right place at the right time, having the right idea in the right moment. And
the foundations were there for it to flourish.
Yeah, because I don't think you can necessarily force these things. It's like if there's not a room for something, if there's not a demand, then how do you create it? It was more like responding to a demand out of like the shared, I guess, passion, but then understanding what I wanted to do and having the people around me who would come. So yeah,
so I
forgot what the question was.
about how you kind of how the community came about. But I guess the answer was you saw a gap and you already had the community around you.
Yes, but that to go into a little bit more detail, the community at that time was largely built around art school students, because Peckham is sort of in between Camberwell College of Arts, Goldsmiths. I was at the Slade at UCL, and then you had a few people from like Wimbledon and Chelsea, and that became the place where people sort of lived and hung out in because it was cheap and there was a few things going on. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I start rambling and I forget the question.
It's because you're looking back quite a long way, right?
Yeah.
You're having to like actually remember the feeling of it all happening.
I am. Yeah.
I do remember in one of these masterclasses, you talked about how you were so stressed at one of the early ones that you were sick. I won't ask you to.
Yeah, that's more of the sort of managerial promoter hat.
Yeah.
That can get a lot.
Yeah. At what point did it start to expand beyond that like tight-knit local community, I guess? Or what was the tipping point where you were like, okay, this could be something bigger, or we could do more with this, or more people are appearing and I have no idea who they are?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it sort of hit the ground running and there was a lot of people from the off, which I was kind of quietly confident that it was going to be popular, but within a few months there was like queues around the corner to get into this event that was held in a pool hall, using my dad's DJ equipment on a literal pool table. Like the DJ booth was a pool table. So it was very DIY. It was in a place that was sort of used in the way that it was not intended to be used, which I think adds something special to a party. And then I guess just the momentum picked up. And I guess the point at which I realized it sort of was becoming this, I don't know, almost like international thing where people outside of that very early iteration were starting to hear about it was when guest DJs would come from America and people would be hitting me up because they'd heard about it from a R8 article or a dummy piece, or there was just a bit of a buzz in Peckham at the time, and that sort of started building. The Beautiful Swimmers became sort of semi-regular guests, and then that was around the same time that Mood Hut was sort of starting to become known outside of Vancouver, and then those guys would come and play over here, and like Jack J, Pender Street Steppers, Hashman DJ, all those guys would come and visit here, and it was just joining the dots between all these different communities that I'd been sort of admiring from a distance. We had Jay Daniel and Kyle Hall, and then people from Australia, Waxo Paradiso, and all of these, I guess, similar communities around the world. And it becomes a different kind of network, it's like joining the dots between these different places and amplifying what each other do.
That's super interesting. So, and I guess it sounds like from what you said, some of the instigator of some of that was the press coverage that gave it a little bit of more visibility beyond the local scene.
There was a big article that RA put out, and that sort of got people interested in it, you know? Much in the same way that I probably read an article about Detroit. In the early days, I remember I had that electronic beats CD that they used to, or the DVD that they used to give out as part of a magazine, and I saw like Theo Parrish documentary following him around Detroit, recording sounds and working with people like Mike Huckabee and Norm Talley, and you know, I was like, wow. So yeah, I think there's a certain amount of like mystique and wanting to understand what happens in a place that is like so different from your own. And I guess it worked both ways, and people kind of was looking at what was going on in Peckham at that time, and the music that we had coming out, and the different artists that were putting things into the world. And yeah, it turns a community into a scene, I guess. I guess that's the tipping point, isn't it? What's the difference between a scene and a community and a movement and an era?
Yeah, visibility, I guess, is the thing. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned the international connections there, because I wanted to pick up on what you mentioned earlier about those international connections that you started to make, like through this Facebook group, and the kind of that feeling that if what you are interested in is not being supported locally, or there's not a thing for it. In your case, you made a thing, but I guess another option is to start building connections online. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about how you've been doing that, and kind of what techniques you might have used, and then that leads us quite neatly into talking about your new label as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. My first experience of online community was Facebook around COVID time, I guess. But I stopped using Facebook quite a few years ago, and I would say that Bandcamp, which is, in my opinion, the best platform for artists in general, labels, just buying music and getting paid properly, is also a music community. You can see what music people are buying, you can talk to each other, you can see what country they're from. You can read the bios and then follow their other pages. And I've found that actually, I think Bandcamp has become my new way of finding community around the world. And I've met some really wonderful people. Recently, I went to India for the first time last year. And I met for the first time some people that I'd been talking to online, and I'd found their music a few years ago on Bandcamp, and then messaged them through Instagram, just, you know, telling them how much I like their music, and then we send music to each other. But then, you know, that for me is really special. We have a very niche taste in music. We're very passionate about it. And then inevitably, when we actually meet each other, we find out that we're very aligned on so many different levels, and you just become friends. And I found that happens so many times. So I hold a place in my heart.
I love that. That's so lovely, because I heard people talk a lot about, you know, different techniques for digging on Bandcamp, but using Bandcamp to make friends is amazing.
Yeah, and also, if anyone from Bandcamp is listening, I think they could lean into that a bit more, because it does have that sort of nice sort of sweet spot in between a social network and a music buying platform. But there wouldn't be that much effort required just to allow a little bit more terms of chat, comments, feedback, some kind of platform within it where you could communicate with labels directly, rather than just like an email button or a comment per release, you know?
It's definitely not a communication. It's not designed for communication, but I kind of like that, because you have to go to the effort to then try.
It takes you out the box.
Yeah, and I think it would be nice if it was more accessible for communication. But I feel like I've met these people because we've all had to do that extra thing just to find or meet or say hi or whatever.
There's some truth in that.
So can you direct message other fans on there? I've never actually tried to.
You can email.
Okay. Oh, you can email.
But then also you can figure out. you can figure out what artists are on each label. You can message them directly on Instagram. It's more of a discovery place rather than a communication. But
also seeing people's collections, seeing what they follow, following what they follow. You can go down quite a rabbit hole of
hours.
Yeah, and actually, the thing they have done really well is the like really detailed infinite genre breakdowns. You know, the filters and stuff, and the tags. Like that's what facilitates it, isn't it? You don't necessarily need to be able to direct message a random fan on there, but you found them.
But it could be the next MySpace.
It could. I actually was thinking about MySpace when you were talking.
There are definitely lots of things that they can improve. I'm not the person to push that. But
We'll just send them this whole video. It's fine.
Yeah.
I know someone on the inside.
Good.
Great. Okay, sorted. Bradley's on the case. And you mentioned when we were speaking before about you've kind of sort of been transitioning to a bit of a new sound as an artist, and kind of pivoting a bit. How has that been? I'm guessing that these online connections and communities have been quite helpful in that process. But how have you found that?
Yeah, it's definitely a whirlwind because I'm so like emotionally connected to this thing. So everything is sensitive, all the little changes and. But there are lots of ups and there are downs as well. It's a journey. It's kind of like life, I'm following my passion, and sonically, my taste has changed. It's hard to describe that, right? I think I have a psychedelic taste in general, but the music that I'm into now is more, it's more deep, it's more textural, and it's maybe less fun. But this is all subjective, right? Because everyone experiences different things from music. But I think it just feels more personal to me, this particular sound. And I guess, it's difficult though, because I've come from a place where people know me, and I'm moving into something which people don't really know that I do that thing. And it's just a transition, I'm going to continue to do it because I love it, and it actually has a lot of similarities to what I've been doing all this time. It's psychedelic music. But yeah, I mean, I could talk about it for hours. I could mumble about it for hours. It's quite complicated.
Yeah.
It's really complicated.
And I guess to put that in the context of what we've just been talking about, you've been like embedded in a scene, sonically, and you've kind of shifted slightly. So it's natural that you need to build a new community, I guess.
Which has been really beautiful. And I've kind of like connected with people from South America and Asia, and it's like it's really exciting. It feels like how it felt in that time in COVID when I started feeling like I was part of a community, a musical community. I feel like I'm going through that process once again, and it's nice.
I think an interesting thing to note, perhaps, is you try to sort of describe your transition, the transition of your sound into a different sort of space, but you didn't use any words to describe it. It's all very abstract. Like, what I'm trying to say is, I guess, if you think of the old days of how you associated your like musical tribe, you were a mod or a rocker, or you were into hardcore or house or drum and bass, or you're a junglist. No one's even using words now. Yeah. Like, is there a word for your scene, your new sound? Or is it, I wouldn't know how to describe mine.
No, I think it's more you just try and describe it by feeling, how it makes you feel, right? Or like, I don't know. No, it's really hard to...
It's interesting, right? Yeah. Everything is very postmodern and there's no labels anymore.
Post-genre.
Yeah. Are we post-genre?
Maybe. I mean, I feel like so much new music now is a bit of something and a bit of something else. And I think there's a whole other conversation there about why that's happened, and the internet, and the fact that we all have access to so many different genres and communities now that 30 years ago we wouldn't have done. So everything is discoverable, streaming platforms, etc. But I personally have noticed that like I feel like I hear less stuff that is like, right, this is cookie cutter like house. Everything feels more blurred to me. I'm interested to know what you both think about that.
Absolutely, I think the blurring is happening for sure, and I think it's really nice because it means that people love different aspects of music. Some people find it harder to describe what those things are, but if everything is blurring, that means that there is more scope for people to try new things and find smaller pockets of music which make them feel good.
And it's not exclusive or exclusionary, you know? But on the other hand, maybe it's just from the outside quite hard to even grasp.
Yeah.
You know, like,
well,
because to my mum, it all sounds the same. Imagine trying to explain to, you know, a 60-something-year-old woman, like, the difference between textural, slightly, you know, psyche prog and, you know, tech house.
Yeah.
We're all real deep in it, and I think we can get a bit lost in that sometimes, but which is maybe the negative side. But the positive side is like the door's open and there's no tribalism, and it's, you know, it's a welcoming space without any rules.
Does that also make it harder, given that both of you run labels, does that also make it harder from a label perspective when everyone is blurring all these different sounds for a label to have does it either mean that it's harder for a label to have a clear identity, or does it mean that the label's identity becomes so niche and narrow and specific? I'm interested to know your thoughts on that.
I think it makes it easier for a label to evolve slowly, but like at least if there are aspects of music within all of these kind of blurs, then you can kind of go around a bit. And like having started my new label, I wouldn't say that it's super, super niche. I think there is scope to go quite a long way in different types of dance music, but there is definitely like an essence, which I'm using another word which really doesn't describe anything, doesn't it? There is an essence which
and there's a
transcends.
thread going through Rhythm Section releases, but we kind of threw out the idea of following any specific sound or genre a long time ago. You know, we'll release something that's more hip hop, something that's very dance floor focused, something that's completely jazzy, something that's totally ambient and post punky, and you know, that's confusing in a different way. but yeah, we're definitely not a niche.
Yeah. I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask, is interesting that we've come onto this naturally, was about how you go about identifying what your sound is. It's a huge question. And actually, in one of the previous masterclasses, we asked Jordan this, and they were like, I don't know what my sound is. I mean, it seems like you've done some thinking about this, because you had some adjectives just now.
Yeah, I think like psychedelic or like hypnotic or droney.
And are these words are these things that you have noticed about your music, or are they things other people have told you about it? How have you kind of
these are what I associated with the sound that I'm into. That's
interesting. I find that sometimes I need someone else to tell me what they think it sounds like in order for me to be like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe it is that. So it's interesting that you've been able to kind of sit and think about this and arrive at something.
But it's also interesting because I haven't actually released much music in the last 2 years, which has been part of my process. So it's kind of like, I'm saying this stuff now and people listen to music, I don't hear that.
Yeah.
So, but I've got stuff coming, so.
It's exciting. And maybe this is a good moment to talk a bit about your new label, Murmurs, which I said we were going to come on to, and we haven't really fully got there. Do you want to tell us a bit about that, about the plan for it, and about all these international connections and how they fed into it?
Yeah, I think for me, it was very important that I kind of like try and do something which I've never done before. I'm part of On Rotation, which is a good label, but there's 3 of us, and Chris does a lot of the legwork, and he does a lot of the stuff behind the scenes. And so I don't feel like I've really had to like do all the bits that go into running a label, and so that was one of the reasons I wanted to do it, was to kind of like give myself that project and see if I can. I'm not naturally logistically smart, so yeah, it's been a good journey, and also that plays into the kind of new community that I found. It felt very natural to kind of invite these people into the space. It was kind of like another natural energy that I felt like I was falling into. It wasn't super planned.
Nice. That's good. That's good. It's fluid.
Yeah.
Murmur's a very nice name, though.
Thank you. And actually, my girlfriend helped me with that one. So. In fact, a lot of people help me with a lot of things. So
it hints at a sort of softness.
Originally, it was going to be murmurations, which is the word that describes flocks of birds, like in the sky. But then, which she also came up with. But then it was taken. And I was really sad. And then I think it was her, yeah. She was like, only shorten it to murmurs. That sounds cool. Like, yeah, that sounds really cool.
It's always a shame when a great name is taken, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
I'm pretty sure there are quite a few murmurs as well around the world, but I didn't really see like anything too similar, so I was like, it's okay.
I think it's a really important point that you just said. I've had help from a lot of people that like you've started this thing and it's yours, but it still takes a village to do these things.
Especially for me, I'm really like I'll ask a billion questions, and even if it's like the smallest things, I'll still ask the question. So, yeah, which is kind of annoying for a lot of people, but.
And how are you? You mentioned that you'd kind of not done with On Rotation. You'd not done so much of the kind of admin side of things. But when we spoke before, you also mentioned you kind of from that process learned that that wasn't your natural inclination. So how are you taking that knowledge forward into this new project? Like,
I think the main thing is just more organisation,
right.
And that's the main thing that I'm taking forward. Making things easier to then sustain in an orderly fashion. Yeah.
And with Rhythm Section, like it's not just you. There's now a whole set of other people that are like making all the cogs turn. Like at what point did you start to think, okay, this needs more than just me, or it needs other people?
Quite early on. The first release was 2014. So last year was sort of our 10-year anniversary. And within that time period, I've worked with a lot of different people. I mean, the first person that kind of came on board was Marley, aka Zed Lovecraft, who at the early days, he was sort of like a sound boy. He came down to the party and he would have the speakers set up and the turntable was ready to go, and he just kind of wanted to help out, and that kind of grew into a natural partnership where he was on board helping with the events. And then, I mean, I could go on a big list of listing like loads of names.
All the
here.
credits.
Don't know how helpful that would be, but shout out Amelia, who's right here. Yeah, and then, because I was always balancing the label sort of admin and day-to-day A&Ring and everything that goes along with that, with touring, with radio, and then more recently with running a venue and other things. So, yeah, it was, and the scope and the size sort of grew quite quickly. It kind of hit the ground running. So I needed help. So we had an office since maybe 2015 or 16. We were in an old school in Bermondsey, and working there with Anu, with Amelia, with Emily, who came on board as an intern and ended up as the label manager. And then since then, it's just kind of people you meet along the way. But I've also been quite conscious of sort of accidental nepotism, not like hardcore nepotism, like I'm employing my, my children or something. But you have this community that turns into a scene, and it can easily be quite a closed door. So some of the hires that we took on more recently are from people we found in the job centre. And Aisha, who's now the label assistant, me and Amelia interviewed maybe about 25 people in Peckham Job Centre and found her. And she's an amazing sort of addition to the team now. So yeah, it's an answer to the question. It's a very much sort of like it takes a village kind of thing. And it's also much more fun to do a creative project with more people, if possible. I think a lot of the times just inevitably you have to start it on your own because, you have to find a way to pay people. But yeah, I've got a big team over the years.
I think there's a really important point in what you said around how communities and scenes can become like a closed shop as well, because we're talking about how important all those in-person connections are and, friendships, not networking. But then if it starts to not be welcome to outsiders, then it can be quite difficult.
Yeah, or if you sort of start creating an atmosphere where perhaps from the outside it looks like you have to be my friend to work with me, and then that's a bit of a weird precedent to set, isn't it? And you could end up quite easily surrounding yourself by yes people, and have a lot of people sort of somehow, I don't know, trying to. You shouldn't have to be someone's friend to work with them, is what I'm saying. It's nice to know people and to meet people, but you don't want to, as whatever your kind of scene or, I guess, platform within that scene is, I think it's important to try and keep the door open. And I think that's a lot of what sort of the early ideas of Future-Proof, what became Future-Proof was.
Yeah.
Finding a way for people who are interested to learn a bit more without having to necessarily be from the, in the middle of it all.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also why with Future-Proof we did like an open call across the whole country, so that it wasn't just like, oh, we know this person, they've got some potential. It was like, let's completely open the door. We will sit and listen to 200 mixes to find the 6 people that we are most excited about and think would benefit most from this. And that's
100%. And I think as you have a bigger reach and I guess more people know and are affected and influenced and inspired by the thing that you've created, you have more of a responsibility as well. Because of course, there's nothing wrong with someone making tunes in their bedroom with their friends and starting a label that's just them and like their buddies. That's fine. But after like 100 releases and traveling the world and sort of touching people with the music, you can't just keep it this in a tight circle of, buddies. So I think that has been a key way that we've sort of expanded beyond our initial, graspable community.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I'm aware we need to kind of start to wrap things up a little bit. So maybe to finish, it would be great to know, I think it feels at the moment like lots of people are talking about needing to save nightlife. Lots of grassroots venues are closing down. It feels like we need community more than ever at the moment. We need the spaces where people can come together. We need to, as a bigger community, make sure those spaces continue to exist. So just very briefly from both of you, I'd love to know, like, how can we organise as a community to help keep the scene going? What do you want to see happening?
It's a tough one.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I think the world's in a bit of a precarious position right now. Money is difficult for everyone, which has a massive impact on spaces, communities, people's ability to go out and meet people, and therefore venues close and communities struggle. It's really hard to know what the best thing forward would be. And I guess if money is the main issue, which I think it is, I guess it's a question of how do we help people afford these situations. And I think there are a lot of things in place with various nights and clubs to offer people who are not in good positions to be able to attend and stuff. But it still doesn't always help the venue stay open. And I don't think I'm clued up enough really to give the ideas there. So maybe Bradley has some ideas.
Again, it's a really complicated one, and I don't think it's not something that any one of us can solve. And I think a lot of the hurdles for the next sort of 10, 15, 20 years, it's more to do with like governmental and like policy, whether that's at like a governmental level or a local council level or a mayoral level. And there's things moving in the right direction. Nathaniel, for example, my partner in Jumby, who was actually here last week doing a talk with Floating Points, funnily enough. He is now part of the Mayor of London's nighttime task force. We've dubbed him the Nightmare.
I love that.
But yeah, so they're actually fighting for a lot of change, you know, in how local licensing authorities work, in the power councils have to green light developments, and the noise control. Well, rather the system around noise complaints. You know,
that has a big impact.
Big impact.
Because clubs are then forced to make the sound system sound worse, which means that people, even if they don't know, people might not go out because the last time they went out it sounded really bad, or that's a big thing for me anyway.
Yeah, or places have to shut earlier.
Yeah.
Because there's this sort of draconian idea in place by unelected council members who just decide that kids shouldn't be up past 2 a.m. based on some like Victorian ideal. Like, it's mad. There's no data for that. It's just like, they don't need to be up past 3. No, that's bedtime, and that's why clubs close early. So there's some work being done to sort of combat a lot of these, I guess, just outdated rules that make nightlife difficult for everyone, from the punters to the promoters to the club owners to the sound system, everything. So that's one way, and maybe it's a bit too soon to say there's light at the end of the tunnel, but there is some light, and the tunnel is long.
But there is a light.
Yeah, there's a light, but we haven't got to the end
flickering.
of it yet. Yeah. So that's one thing, and then I guess the other thing that I guess is what I noticed most heavily, sort of when I look back at my time in Peckham as a 20-year-old versus the sort of experience of the 20-year-olds who are in Peckham now, living, you know, a similar kind of life to what I was living then. The creative people, the young art students, the young musicians. It's just, as Adam said, it's just getting so expensive. When I moved to Peckham, I moved there because it was cheap, and I paid £275 a month.
What?
But that was kind of normal. That was like on the cheap side, but it wasn't crazy. Now, even like people who are still at university or have just graduated are paying like £700-800 a month or more. And they're just getting driven out, slowly but surely, you know. But the problem with London is there's not... Where do you go when you've already like left Central and gone to
Essex,
Peckham, and then left Peckham and gone to Forest Hill, and then you leave Forest Hill, go to Penge, and then where?
Penge is nice.
Penge is okay.
I should point out, when I said Essex, I am from Essex, so I'm happy with that. But everyone else might not be.
But I think it is important that there's hot spots. I think maybe if you're from... Well, if you haven't lived in London, it might be easy to just look at London as this super creative place where all the exciting things are happening. But if you go to Edmonton, no offense,
it's quiet, and you don't hear any cars. But there's also nothing to do.
Yeah, it's not all of London is not exciting. There's pockets, and central London, in terms of sort of underground culture, outsider art, is a dead zone. all the cool clubs that were there when I was like 18 to 25, they're all gone. But then all these cool things started popping up in Peckham, in Dalston, in Hackney. And just the constantly rising rents is pushing it out to a point where in 10, 20 years, I struggle to sort of imagine where it will be. So, I mean, I think rent control is one really important way that could be at least slowed down. Places change, that's inevitable. It's not about trying to stop change, it's just about trying to manage it in a way that is like more natural and allows for places to, like, I don't know, have a moment that's more than just a flash in the pan.
I think it opens the door for rave culture to flourish again, and there are still a lot of raves that happen around the country, but I think there are still a lot of spaces that can be used in the underground, and I think that will inevitably become more of a thing, and I think that will actually help a lot of communities in the music scene as well. But obviously, I don't know if I can advocate for that on here, because so promoting
we're on YouTube.
Illegal activities.
Yeah, absolutely you can. But I think the essence is that people find a way. And certainly when we all start, or I mean, I'm speaking for myself here, and I imagine Adam, when you're starting out in this world, you're not trying to make money. It's just like, let's throw a party, let's find a way where we can play loud music late at night. And it's only later when you've given up on all the other career options that you sort of have to find a way to do that and make some sort of living. And that's when you go from, I guess, being a sort of young agitator to, I guess, as a more institutional institution, which I think is a natural cycle of things. But I say all that just to say that there's still the people who are 18 years old putting raves on that we don't even hear about anymore.
Too old.
Yeah, but that's okay,
Yeah, I think that's a really nice positive note to end on, actually, that like the music always finds a way, people will find a way no matter what is going on, and in some ways the worse things get in the world, the more people will need to and want to do that and have that outlet.
And if it means that it sort of balances a bit away from London as the sort of centre of everything, that's maybe not the worst thing as well for the UK.
Yeah, well, I suppose we can't talk about that too much, can we? Because we don't have much time. But I didn't even think about that, but that is a big thing, actually, how London has become the kind of...
It's like a vacuum.
It's everything, yeah, it's a vacuum.
A brain drain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe this is the beginning of some rebalancing. That's a nice thought.
Bring back regional clubbing.
Yeah, regional clubbing's always been here. You just weren't there.
Nice note again, please.
We've got another 45 minutes to do that one, to talk about that.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I think we should wrap it up there. Before we do, Adam, do you want to just plug your first Murmurs release?
I don't really want to.
It's a secret.
But I appreciate it. No, it's not. I'm not trying to keep it a secret. I struggle to talk about my stuff. It's
So
murmurs.recordings on Bandcamp. Yeah.
And you've got a compilation, which is
16 tracks from artists around the world. It's digital only, which for me, a lot of the music I buy right now is digi only, so it makes sense for me. It's less stress, less hassle, and it's very accessible.
Excited to go and dig through that. Thank
Yeah.
you. So before we wrap up, we should say a big thank you to Arts Council England and Beatport's Diversity and Parity Fund, which have made all of this possible, to Audio Technica for the sound, Cradle and to Ableton, and most importantly, a huge thank you to Adam Pitts and Bradley Zero. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Emily.